Hi, everybody. This is John Stanton.
And I'm Robin Connelley.
We are the co-founders of Chōsen, and this is part of the Chōsen Insight series, which we've launched recently to have these authentic conversations. Sometimes it's just one of us, sometimes it's with Chōsen alumni, to actually connect with you and talk about the things that are going on in our lives, the books that we're reading, the topics that are resonating with us, and share them in this very authentic manner with you directly.
Yeah, so today we are going to have a conversation about nonviolent communication, which I've posted about a few times and made a few videos on social, so you may have seen that. Basically, this book is killing it for me right now. So I've read it 3 times in the last 6 months. And every time I read it, I'm still absorbing a lot of information. So that's why I wanted to talk about it today. It's profound. It's changing the way that I view the world. It's hard. It's confronting. It's a lot of things. So I wanted to have a quick conversation about it with John, tell you what's going on for us, invite you to read it or to comment and give us your feedback on if you've read it or what do you think about the ideas that are in it. So that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah, and so part of the reason why we're actually going through this book, or we're going to wax, metaphorically about it here in a moment, is that it relates directly to the rest of the Chōsen program and the way that we engage both with our alumni, people on our breakthrough experiences and destinations, and through the courses that we're running, particularly during this time of disconnection. So a big part of the questions that we receive from you guys, in particular because we're historically very performance focused. We have a lot of Olympians. We have a lot of CEOs, founders, family office leaders, VCs that we work with that are part of our community, that are part of our family. And a big part of what makes these people successful is how they communicate. And not just how they communicate with each other or with the people that are in their organizations, even the competition. They actually have a sense of how to communicate first and foremost with themselves. And it's around these 2 topics, which for me, it's actually quite confronting as well. This topic of, or the 2 themes of knowing how you're feeling and then knowing what you need. And so that internal dialogue for a lot of us doesn't happen. It's just an outward flow of potentially lashing out or saying or taking an assessment or something like that, or making an assessment, exactly, judgment, etc. And for these incredible humans that we're blessed with to have as our family, as our community, this type of communication is bar none what they consistently come back to and say that this is what's helping them both succeed and also adapt in this really strange time.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to state, which again, I've read it 3 times in the last 6 months, and I'm listening to it on Audible every day, over and over and over. So it's really important. It took me a while to understand one particular aspect, which is that it's communicating with yourself and then what you say to the outside world, but it's also about how you listen and perceive other people at the same time. So it's a 2-way street, and what we're actually talking about and what the basis of the concept is empathy. So it is expressing yourself honestly, having empathy for yourself, understanding yourself, and at the same time being able to stop, do active listening, which we talk about a lot at Chōsen, listen to this other person, but also understand that maybe they can't communicate that effectively. And so you can actually have the skill of reaching behind what they're saying, understanding what they actually mean when maybe they don't even know what they actually mean. And imagine what kind of superpower that is for conflict resolution, for leadership, for getting diverse teams to achieve seemingly impossible things. That is a game changer. I can't even imagine how awesome I'm going to be once I can do that, because I can't do it yet.
So Robin touched on a few major points there, incredibly major points. But the first one, this concept of empathy, which is thrown around in our zeitgeist quite a bit nowadays, in this woke zeitgeist that's happening. And for me, historically, I'm a nice guy. I can, I like hugs. It's that, like, empathy. Okay, what exactly does that mean? And a lot of it really is both knowing yourself and what emotions are happening, right? And then not applying a story onto someone else, which is kind of what Robin talked about there at the end, knowing what's happening behind the words as an insane superpower. So to give you a little bit more reference here or context about the author. So I call him Marshall. It's Marshall Rosenberg, PhD. He's been in some hairy situations with deep conflict negotiations happening. And he's managed to actually work with people. We're talking like warring cultures, that type of stuff. People in prisons. It's where there's violence and there's like a history of violence. And he's talking about empathy, which is often such a, pardon me for saying this, it's like it's thrown around as this frou-frou soft concept where we're supposed to be, all open and kind and everything else. But we're talking in scenarios where a normal human would find it impossible to implement empathetic communication. He's talking about it from a very straightforward perspective that can be implemented in your daily life. And I say can be because, Robin and I have been working on this within our organization for months now, and it's challenging. It's simple, but it's challenging. And a big part of that is what I said before, is where as humans, particularly Westerners, we have a tendency of assigning a story to someone and what they're doing to us before we understand what's actually going on.
And there's a culture of judgment. And and he talks about how the way the English language works is inherently non-empathetic, which is hard. As a native English speaker, you might have a different perspective because you're not a native English speaker. Yeah. But for me,
I'm not a native English speaker.
Yeah, but for me as a native English speaker, it's very confronting. You're like, oh, the way that I've been taught to speak is inherently not empathetic. So I'm
confrontational.
And the word that he uses is it's considered violent. It's a violent language that does not encourage empathy and connection between the people because of the structure that it uses, which is like, that's game changing. That changes my whole life because everything I do, think and dream and everything is in English. And if that's inherently violent, I now have to kind of learn this new skill and then take that and apply it to literally everything I've ever experienced in my whole life and have a different point of view on it. So to say that it's, changing my reality is not an understatement. Or it is an understatement.
Yeah.
It is an understatement because it's literally changing every interaction that I've ever had, and I can run it back through my head and then say, oh, that's what was happening there, and it's not what I thought was happening. It's something else, and it's so interesting. So
actually, I this is very interesting to me, and we'll get into actually what's going on in the book, and the reason I say Marshall is because I listen to Marshall 3 or 4 days a week on Audible. So, and he's got a very soothing voice, which
it's very calm.
Yeah, it's amazing. Where I'm like, all right, yeah, that's so simple. Thanks, Marshall. Dr. Rosenberg. So I want to loop back on a couple of things. So both Robin and I, historically, we're VCs. So we deal with, and not just regular VCs, we dealt with actually like hard technology, bringing, commercializing and bringing it to market. So there's scientific language, there's the conventional things you read about in the media where it's challenging and trying, and there's this burnout culture around funding and founding ventures and everything. And then and what you don't know about Robin is that she's also an attorney and was the third-ranked kickboxer in the U.S. You probably know that somewhere in our content. So how, maybe not the kickboxing, because it's actually more Zen than we give it credit for, but how does this contrast your legal training
and finance
and finance training on the VC side? But how does it contrast that?
I don't even know where to begin. I mean,
Everything.
it's everything. Like basically everything that I've done all of my schooling for fits into this, little...
And all your previous professional
Yeah,
endeavors.
everything that I've done from being a child, starting with learning English, learning how to interact with other people through English, then building up to very masculine intellectual concepts around finance, numbers, money, and then going into law and the legal atmosphere, particularly in the United States, which is quite adversarial, and then going into advanced finance, and then in the world of venture capital, which is again very masculine, very adversarial, and then finding something like this, which is 100% the opposite. No one is your adversary. Everyone is just a basic human being, and we all have the same needs. And everyone you sit across the table from, whether it's negotiating for a deal, whether it's an employee that you're hiring or that you're having trouble with, whether it's your lover, your partner, your best friend, your family, your parents, your siblings, all of these relationships are now 100% different. I view them differently. It's like my entire reality has just been shaken and it's changed, and that's why I'm reading it over and over and just digesting it. And I think that my life is going to change for the better in a lot of ways after reading and engaging with this book and putting in the time and energy to learn these skills. And I'm so interested in what's going to happen and how everything's going to progress. It's kind of going to be life before nonviolent communication and then
Marshall.
life after nonviolent communication. This is why we wanted to talk to you guys, because it's kind of a big deal.
All right, so let's get into it for a moment. And there's a few things that we're going to talk about over the next 20 minutes or so. And let's kick into this concept of observation versus evaluation. Mm-hmm. This is a core tenet of this process, and it's a nice little introduction. Mind you, we're still working through this. So, and we've been at it for months.
Yeah, but not experts by any stretch.
I'm calling up Marshall. Hey, Marshall. How's it going, buddy? Can you put me to sleep with? I already have the Audible. It's fine. So these are big key takeaways for us. We're not trying to teach you to the depth and level that Marshall, Dr. Rosenberg, can and does and is internationally renowned for. But these are the things that we're taking away as an introduction and already implementing in both the business and the way that we engage, even on the courses that we're running for our incredible community and alumni. So that was the preface. We're going to kick this off. Observation versus evaluation. Robin, give me...
Again, I mean, I talked about this on social media the other day, but this is a big one because when I started at a young age, starting, to learn a lot very quickly, maybe like third grade, when you start kind of just attracting all this knowledge and learning very quickly, you start learning to skip steps because you're in a hurry. You want to learn as much as possible. You want to do as much as possible. You have these deadlines. And when you start building these processes, which are like skip steps, I don't need to observe. The second I observe, I already evaluate. I know what this person's doing. This is dangerous or not dangerous. This is good or bad. This is, all of these kind of black and white, quick scenarios. And that is how I've lived my life, my whole life. So granted, martial arts did help a bit because basically you learn martial arts or kickboxing so that you have that extra time to observe someone's behavior before making often an irrational decision in your head that you're in danger. So because you're trained in martial arts, you observe for a longer period because you know that you're not in danger until you actually are, which is something that you're familiar with and you understand that.
Wow.
So that's that's probably helped me a lot that I didn't even realize until I'm reading this book.
You have that's like a core aspect of your martial arts training. It's so cool that this is
like you learn to fight so that you never have to fight.
Yeah.
Like that's the concept of martial arts is I never have to fight. I never need to feel like I'm going to have to fight. That's just, that kind of takes that off the table.
Wow. It's so cool that it resonates on that level with you, though. It's like a somatic level.
Yeah.
Like
in your body.
Like
fear, am I in danger? Or no, this isn't one of those dangerous situations. And so on a base level through martial arts, I knew this. But then I continued along a finance path. Law and finance, which is, I started in undergrad finance, which is very negotiating deals, trying to get more money than the other person. The person across the table is your adversary. You're not working together. Only one of you is going to win the deal. And then law school is the same way. It's like it's in the person across from you. You need to win. You're trying to win. It's black and white, good and bad. You make quick decisions, and that's what you're trained to do.
And as a VC,
and as a venture capitalist, it's the same thing. I mean, how do you really expect to have a team come in, pitch to you for money, and within a 1 hour window say, yeah, I'm on board, we're going to be together for 25 years and I think you're going to be super successful and I'm going to put this chunk of money in there. It's like you're making quick evaluations based on behavior, based on what clothes they're wearing, based on how they email you, based on their story, based on their pitch deck, based on the actual technology that you're investing in. So you're making all these evaluations constantly. And so that is what that's my habit. Like we talk about neuroplasticity a lot. My brain is 100% well ingrained to fast, quick judgments about everything. And I have a funny example, which is that in Bali, we all drive around on motorcycles or on scooters. And when I first got here, and it's chaos. Like, it's not India chaos, but it's, very far from, Singapore or America. It's way more chaotic in the middle. And so people are turning in from the left. When they turn in, they don't stop. They just come into the road. Yeah, there's no looking.
Flow.
Their expectation is that you're going to move. Yeah. So there's kind of a flow that happens, right? Because they've gone from dirt roads to paved roads, and there's not really traffic laws or even norms, really. And so everyone's just sort of doing their own thing. And when you come to an intersection, there's no right of way, there's no stop sign, there's no who should go first. Everyone's just sort of slows down and tries not to hit each other. And so when I first got here, for a few years actually, I would drive around just making judgments on people all the time. Like, this guy's about to hit me, that guy doesn't know what he's doing.
An asshole.
Like, and for me, that's keeping me safe, right? But I didn't realize that I'm actually, continuing to ingrain and enforce these habits that I have. And the habit is, okay, it's a good skill to have if I need it, but I don't want it to be my default. I don't want my default to be a snap judgment about a situation, about a person, about anything. I want to be open. I want to let things play out. I want to be, I want to observe, without having a bias. I want to observe from a neutral position so that I can understand people better. But I've trained my brain for 40 years now to not do that. So now I'm just starting to move and to even understand how to observe without evaluation. How about you?
This is interesting, because Robin touched on this concept of neuroplasticity, right? Which is your brain's ability to rewire itself. And in particular, through new experiences and the learnings you get from these experiences, but then it's the practice of the learnings you get from this experience, right? So Robin, having basically most of your life practiced a very specific jump to an evaluation shortcut was deep paths in the forest, carved in your brain kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you applied it from driving down the street in Indonesia to every single aspect of your professional life, personal life, and every way that you engage with the world. That's incredible. I love it. That's pretty cool. This is, for me, that resonates pretty deeply because it speaks to an awareness, right? And so this is why we say, oh, Marshall, God, man, Marshall. Because I get the Audible and then message us, and you'll know what I mean. Because he'll say things in the nicest granddad way possible, and it'll be hyper confronting because, like Robin, being very vulnerable about this experience, saying like, hey, this is what I do consistently, and now we're working on this consistently and working on changing it, which means that we have to practice it all the freaking time, and even have meetings about it. That's like to that level, that depth of working with our neuroplasticity to actually get new pathways on how to communicate. And it's stuff that seems almost innocuous, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I feel this way and I need this. And then of course, like the receiving end of that is that you're also actively looking for in this person's communication to you, especially if they are not doing it well, especially if they're not following the same construct. And like, what is this person feeling and what are their needs, versus jumping to an evaluation where it's like, God, this guy's a prick. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
This guy's obviously out to get me. What is happening?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that for me is really interesting. Just commentary on what you were talking about and connecting it to the brain, which I love doing. This, Robin was asking, what was the question you were asking for? What was like, what's my big thing?
Yeah. So what do you think about this observation versus evaluation?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, because, Spanish is your original language,
Mm-hmm.
is there a different experience for you?
There is actually, yeah. And this is where we differ in our, and in the way that we communicate, even, as business partners and leaders within our organization, and the way that we engage with the community and everything else, is that, I started as a native Spanish speaker. And then I moved to the United States during a time of civil war in my country, and immigrated stateside. And I was raised by this small Latin American woman. And
Hi, Hilda.
How's it going, Mom? And and a big part of my upbringing was empathy. I didn't know that was the term at the time, but it was actually like trying to pay attention to emotions and how people were feeling around me. And it was a female-led household, even though I was the eldest son. But it's there was a bit more call it tolerance, or even support for expression of emotion, which was and now retrospectively I look back on that and I think I was actually quite lucky that this was the case. So for me it goes into the next part of this, which is the concept of feeling versus assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And it links, you start with observation. You're trying to act, and this is not just like, oh, I observe this is interesting. You're actively engaged in observing what the person is doing, feeling, and you're trying to flesh it out, and you ask a lot of questions versus jumping to a conclusion or making an evaluation right from the beginning. Evaluation, similar to the concept of assessment, which we're talking about now. And that links directly to me to a point that really is very challenging for me, but it also resonates pretty deeply with me. And so this is something that sometimes people call it having a story. I think Brene Brown references that. Love you, Brene Brown. It's this concept of assigning an assessment when you're actually trying to relay information, right? Particularly about how you're feeling. All right. So I'll use the I pronoun. So it's, and I've done this consistently. Many of you probably do. And so it's that, and it happens in the business world as performance athletes. Both of us have, like looked at it, it's like, I feel like you're not doing something. Interesting. That is an interesting emotion, right? And I have a list of emotions here. And guess what isn't in that list of emotions? You not doing something. It's like, I feel like you were being mean to me. Also not on the list. You being mean to me isn't a feeling. It's not an emotion, right? And so this concept, though seemingly basic and though seemingly really easy to comprehend, is ultra challenging to do. And for me, it's kind of like my personal favorite thing on both how I aspire to engage and communicate is actually saying, hey, I am feeling hurt, or let's say distressed, or irritated, or aloof, or positive feelings. Let's say happy, fulfilled, joyous, all these real emotions. And the negative ones are easier as an example. Excuse me. Primarily because those negative ones are usually the ones that turn into an assessment of what someone else is, or what we think someone else is trying to do. So it's like, Robin, I'm feeling like you're not, or it's like, I'm feeling like you're being mean to me. I feel like you are being rude. I feel like you're doing X, Y, and Z. Or Z, depending on where you are. That, first of all, is like, it's monumental for me. Because I'm like, wait a second. Every time I do it now, it's like, oh wait, now I have to take responsibility. Let's say for example that Rob and I are in a business meeting, we're having a conversation, and I'm like, I feel like you're being rude. Oh, it's not an emotion, it's an assessment. It is now my responsibility to actually state what I'm feeling. And then eventually we're going to talk a little bit about needs, but then also state specifically what I need. And if you're watching this, you're probably thinking, well, that actually sounds really freaking hard. Because let's say my assessment is Robin's being rude to me, or someone else is being rude to me, whomever. I have to step up. I have to step up and I have to say, hey, my feelings aren't, I don't feel great. My feelings are hurt. Because I have a need for empathetic communication. And I don't feel, and I'm in a situation that I'm assessing that that's not happening right now. And so, I mean, you see that? That's pretty vulnerable in execution, where versus, hey, confrontationally, you're being a dick. I'm feeling like you're being a dick. No, right? So I hand it over to you, because that's something that both is super challenging to implement. It's also super challenging to be on the receiving side, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say I'm doing a terrible job of actually saying how I'm feeling, and I'm making assessments. I'm like, Robin, you're being rude to me. I feel like you're being rude to me, not an emotion, right? Give me an example of you responding in a nonviolent communication way that actually is the the skill set that old Marshall tells us.
Well, I'm not there yet,
Yeah. This is why it's good to be a hypothetical, right?
Yeah, but I think it's more about me being aware that if you're telling me that you think I'm being rude to you, then that's a red flag for me that you're struggling. Something is harming you. You're uncomfortable.
My needs aren't being met.
Yeah, your needs aren't being met at the end of the day. And so my role as a nonviolent communicator is to say, okay, can you tell me a bit more about how you're feeling and what you need? how can I help you, basically, versus, defensive. Like,
versus, I'm not being rude.
Yeah, I'm not being rude. What's your problem? Like, you came in, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, so it's your problem,
Didn't have your coffee, John.
Yeah, and instead of it being,
it's true.
it's sort of like it's radical responsibility. I mean, you take responsibility for two things: how you communicate to other people and how you receive how other people communicate to you. Hold that in your head for a minute.
This is some advanced stuff.
Yeah.
Old Marshall instructor Dr. Rosenberg is telling us.
I'm going to go through, so the total process, just so you know, in case you're curious, is the way to communicate with another person is to make an observation, not an evaluation, to state your feeling, which there's a list of them, of the ones that are actual feelings, and that takes some practice, as John's already demonstrated.
Yeah. It's hard.
Then to be aware of and express your needs. And there are a group of needs that are universal, basically. All humans have the same needs, which is really interesting. And they include equality. They include autonomy. They include love,
freedom.
Actually, and freedom. So these things, they come and go. Like, these needs surface and they go away. So one day John might say, Robin, you're being rude to me. And it breaks me.
I feel like you're being rude to me, Robin.
Yeah, because I have a need for connection, and that means that my need wasn't being met, and now it's even further from being met. So I'm going to react bigger to that, right? It's sort of like a double thing. Versus some other time when I'm feeling happy and connected, and then I can be really clear and say, oh, something's wrong with you because I have all my needs are being met. Then I have space to definitely, not take what you're saying personally, and to understand and give you empathy about what you're experiencing. And so then the last part of this is to make a request, which is also a hard thing to do because it has to be clear.
Especially if you feel assessment like someone's being a dick. That's you're like, wait, I gotta tell you my feelings and what I need, and then I'm gonna make a request of this person who I have assessed as being a dick right now. Marshall, are you serious? Marshall, are you there?
This is how you get Palestinians and Israelis to talk to each other. And this is how you get warring tribes in Africa to sit down at the table and stop killing each other. It is this radical responsibility. And John and I are on the journey to accept this for ourselves. And it is quite a journey. And I endeavor to say it's going to be going on for the rest of my life. It's not going to be okay, I'm done. Now I'm a nonviolent communicator. It's going to be day in, day out. Need to keep it at the forefront of my mind. Where these paths build this, knowledge and this habit around this way of interacting with people. And it's definitely a priority for me because I do think that it's important and it aligns with my values and it's who I want to be and the kind of person that I want to be. So why don't we do some rapid fire questions?
Rapid fire, let's do this.
And then bring this to a close, but we do encourage you to explore this whole new world that we've ventured into around empathetic, nonviolent communication and interaction with everyone. And what it says in the book is that this is for empathy, collaboration, authenticity, and freedom. So this is a clear path to that. So I'm going to start. Okay, so I have a couple of rapid fire questions, and John does not know these ahead of time. So let's see what happens. Okay, first question.
Mm-hmm.
What is your current morning routine? I feel like you are not. What is your current morning routine?
Oh, okay.
Like today.
Today. What did I do today? When I awoke, right from the very beginning, I turned on a guided meditation that the one that I used today was actually around positivity. So it's a bit of a breathwork meditation, lasts about 14 minutes. And so I get focused on the breath, breathe, meditate, all the things. And then there are actual reflections on the current state of my life, and in particular, acknowledging and being grateful for the positive things that are going on despite all of the insanity and uncertainty around COVID, et cetera. I do and so that's a guided one, and then I basically do right after that. I do just a virtually silent. It like kicks off and helps me like start breathing, and then like a full blown 5 or 6 minutes or so of just focusing on my breath. And so right after that, I'm in a really receptive state of mind. I do a journaling exercise, which is all about gratitude and then how I want my day to go. So it's both writing the things that I'm grateful for, being very specific, how I see my day, how I define success for my day, and then defining what went well yesterday. So it's a 3-step process. Basically straight from there, this morning had my dental floss, toothbrush, and then I went to have a big tall glass of water. And I like, before my workout, have a grind of my own coffee, which is amazing, single origin. And I have a side of this turmeric beverage that I'm having. It's like turmeric, black pepper, and a little bit of call it butter, basically ghee, in there. I'm currently injured, so I do a lot of anti-inflammatory stuff to make sure that I'm recovering well. And then from there, I go to workout, and so I go straight to the gym. So that whole thing probably lasts about an hour. I'm easing in, and then I arrive at the gym at 7 a.m. Today I arrived at the gym at 6:59 a.m. Yeah.
Awesome.
So there you go.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What is keeping you sane in these times?
Wow. A few things. My morning routine is keeping me sane. Quite frankly, if I don't do it, then I'm really agitated. I guess you would say. It's basically, if I don't do it, I'll like jump into old bad habits like reading the news and everyone's absurd conspiracy theories.
I have to like exhale to get that stress out.
I have to like nonviolent communicate with myself right now, basically. So basically my morning routine makes it that I have no negative inputs. I don't have anything during that like special time of the day that's like, that's your brain. I love neuroscience and background in behavioral neuroscience and stuff. Like I love it. And it's just, you're a sponge in the morning, sponge when you first wake up. And if you crank start your day with emails and stress and Politico and Reuters or the way worse versions of those are actually all right. And like, stress and fear, that just sets the tone. And so morning routine, exercise, which I did get injured recently, both working out, surfing and stuff, hanging out with the dog and being in the ocean, basically.
Those are good ones.
Yeah. There's other things like I'm not drinking because, things like knocks out my sleep cycle, etc. So good sleep, great self-care, lots of reading, science fiction books. I have a long list.
Okay, last one. What is an upside to your new lifestyle?
Are we saying this nonviolent communication is a new lifestyle?
No, the new lifestyle is COVID.
Oh, the upside. Okay. Well, last year I was in 20 countries. And I would joke that my version of hell was being stuck in an airport indefinitely as like an afterlife, right? And so an upside to my lifestyle is actually there's a lot less wear and tear on my body from not having to be in transit and in airplanes, basically, say half the year. I'm also spending more time with the dog, which is a big upside because she's pretty cool. And I'm surfing a lot more. So yeah,
that's great.
Threefold.
Great.
Yeah. So I also, the rapid fire, you ready?
Yes.
Morning routine, go.
my morning routine now is a
You
COVID.
plug in Marshall.
It's a COVID routine for
Yeah.
sure. And I had to build it up slowly over time, but now it's a whole thing, and I love it. So I wake up in the morning and I push the button on Insight Timer and listen to one of my favorite meditations to start the day. And right now I'm all into Sarah Blondin. She's amazing. I like her voice and her vibe, and she's a writer, so she has these really kind of creative meditations that she does. So I really like that. And then I get up, brush my teeth, grab the dog, head to the beach, and do a at least 1 hour beach walk with her. And that allows me to do a check-in with myself. How's my body feeling today? What does she need? How's my intellect today? What's on my to-do list? What do I need to do? How am I feeling emotionally, so I can practice understanding my emotions through nonviolent communication. And then what do I desire? So that's another kind of course that I'm taking. Like, what do I want? So come back to my purpose. What do I want today, and what do I want long term? And then lastly, how is my spiritual self doing? Check in with myself. And then that's all during my walk. So then that's half my walk. And then the walk back is a mindful meditation walk where I'm just being present, observing the ocean, observing the people, observing how my feet feel in the sand, observing, looking for seashells, seeing what Coco's doing, whatever. And so I have that, which is awesome. Then I come back, get some water, do 2 sun salutations very slowly and curiously. Then I do a 5-minute child's pose. Yeah, while I'm listening to 2 Gottman meditations, which are like these little communication, basically lessons that are like under 5 minutes each. And then I do some ab work. I do some more stretching. I do some dancing, 2 songs. And then I go out and hang out, sit down for 9 minutes while listening to Marshall Rosenberg and Nonviolent Communication on Audible. And then I get some water, come in, sit down, get ready to start work. So my morning routine is about 2 hours at this point.
It's a pretty rock star routine, though.
It's amazing, and it honestly is getting me through every day in a happy state. So, yeah.
So, another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How many more people internationally are you in touch with now, the advent of insane amounts of Zoom calls?
Yeah, a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because before, when we travel so much, there's kind of always a need for time to myself and recovery. And now I've kind of maxed out time for myself. So
2
I'm
hours
much
in the morning.
more, yeah, exactly. I get 2 hours in the morning, and I'm much more available to other people, to take calls, to call people, which calling is, I'm not really that comfortable with that. I like to schedule calls, and then even then we can just text about it. But I'm moving into having more phone calls with people I haven't talked to in a while, and it's really nice actually, because I have the time and I have the mental space to do that. So that would be one of my upsides to this new lifestyle.
Current favorite book that is not nonfiction. So current favorite fiction book that you're reading
Fiction.
or read recently. All this.
Well,
this is
I've
all
been
like
reading.
work stuff.
Yeah, so I read. I finished the Foundation series earlier this year. It's amazing, of course.
Yeah.
And then I've just been going down the rabbit hole of all kinds of science fiction. I don't have any right now. I'm looking for something. So if anyone's got something amazing, something like, I want to be mind blown, like The 3-Body Problem. If you haven't read that, that's mind blowing. I want the next one of that. And I've been searching and I haven't found what I'm looking for yet. So
yeah, but to be clear,
Foundation series.
You've read through Asimov, you've read a ton of Philip K. Dick, Heinlein, 3-Body Problem, Ursula.
Yep.
I just forgot Ursula's last name. She's amazing.
Basically all of the
stuff.
main science fiction, all of the like old school science fiction from the 60s.
All the way through the 80s. Nice.
All the way through the 80s. I've done all of that.
So Robin's asking for recommendation
any hidden
for
gems,
mind
let me
bending.
know.
Yeah. And so part of the reason why we're actually bringing up sci-fi is going back to the concept of neuroplasticity and this is all related, right? Performance, communication, empathy,
learning new things.
If your mind is bent out of your current reality, you're more creative. And so Robin's living a life of massive creativity these days. So send over your recommendations. Very much appreciated. And with that, thank you so much for being with us during this Insight series. We appreciate you being here and non-violently communicating with us and vice versa. And we look forward to next time, when we'll do another series like this, another intro to something that we're reading or something that we're dealing with in a way that's a bit accessible and a bit fun.
Feel free to give us comments, likes, shares, comment if you want us to talk about something or review something or try a new book, try a new series, whatever it is. Make comments, talk to us. This is a two-way conversation. So thank you guys. Hope you have a great day, and thanks for watching.